Man, I should have organized this. This is a fucking joke, Dallas. This is not in order at all.
Oh my gosh, there's some
Welcome back, Mighty Vandals, to Tubs at the Club, the Idaho Vandals affiliate on the Big Sky Podcast Network. It is our questions episode, the final episode of the 2024-2025 season. I am your host, Dallas Hammer, joined almost as always by brave, bold Brian Marceau.
Dude, good to be here. The question episode, it's really a lot different than what we usually do. You and I, like, hey, behind pulling the curtain away, you and I purposely don't try to do lots of podcast-y type of episodes where it's just like two dudes, or three, counting the producer redacted down there, just talking about, whatever without research. But here we are.
And as always, our producer in Moscow, the man of Moscow, it's producer redacted, Martin Heemstra. Martin, how's it going, dude?
Doing good. It's warming up in Moscow. Students are finally gone. It's nice and quiet. It's a good time in Moscow now.
Some of the best times in Moscow are when the students are gone and it's just a nice, chill little town. But guys, this episode is going to be anything but chill because, as always, with our questions episode, our patrons sent us in a ton of questions. We're going to do our best to get through all of them. If any good questions come up in the comment section on YouTube, we will try our best to respond. If you're listening to these on podcast services after recording, well, hopefully you enjoyed the questions that we answered because you didn't get a chance to ask them. So if you do want to ask questions of us on the next time we do this next year, patreon.com/Tubs of the Club. Guys, we're just going to jump right into a question submitted by our own Martin Heemstra. Who would win versus a gorilla? 100 Martins, 100 Bryans, or 100 Dallases? Martin, you're the one who asked the question, so I feel like I've got to go to you for the answer first.
I'm going to remove myself out of this just so I don't have any bias. I'm going to go with Dallas because, you've seen how hot he can get during some answers sometimes. I think he could muster up enough rage and anger and beat a gorilla. 100 Dallases could do that.
I'm going to say questions like these are the ones that make me question why podcasts exist in the first place. So I would not be winning this fight because my first thought is, why in God's name would I waste my time with stupid shit like this? So by default, I have not won, which means one of you two is going to win, and Martin's about to be on the shelf, so there is no other option. There we go.
That is fair. I'm going to go with Martin on this one only because at the very start, yes, 100 Dallas is filled with enough rage to intimidate the gorilla. But as soon as the gorilla rips the first Dallas's arm off, the other 99 piss themselves in fear. So,
and hey, so people listening are going to miss this. Producer Redacted throws in the Chiron. Brian would get the gorilla to drink whiskey. I think you don't understand how serious I am about whiskey. There is no way in hell I am going to be giving whiskey to a gorilla who would not be able to appreciate any of the nuances. And I don't keep like actually shitty whiskey that I'd be willing to throw away like that. So no, what I might do is pour myself a couple, including maybe a Snake River as well as something else, maybe a Thomas More extended cask finish. And I might go enjoy the fact that I'm not taking part in what we just talked about, which I'm not going to dignify by actually naming.
I love that you took this answer more serious than either Martin or myself did, Brian, for being the guy who's like, I don't care about this. You were the one with the most long-winded and most thought-out answer.
You're welcome.
Okay, let's get on to some actual sports conversations, and then we will certainly barrel back into nothing serious. Captain 58, most of these questions are Vandals-centric, so I just want to rip into this one first. Sac State. How the fuck did that happen? Again, that comes from Dan Martson, Captain 58. Brian, I'm going to let you take the wheel.
I mean, I think so. If you haven't been paying attention, the things that Captain 58 could be including in Sac State, what the hell, are one, Sac State. They're attempting to leave the Big Sky Conference. By the way, they'll pay at least they'll pay $1 million exit fee for that pleasure, which very recently all of the university athletic directors, presidents voted in favor of increasing the exit fee, except one. Can you guess what city that university president lives in, Dallas?
Greeley?
I was thinking Greeley too, actually.
Weird. Well, it's Sacramento. So that could be what you're talking about. You could be talking about just the kind of whirlwind that's been going on since Sacramento State was able to get Brennan Marion as head coach out of UNLV, where he'd been a very successful offensive coordinator. That also might not be what you're talking about. You could be talking about that there actually is verified a ton of NIL money in Sacramento State. You could be talking about just kind of just like out of nowhere can't transfer into UNLV quarterback out. Dude, my bad for not having this prepped, but that's the nature of this show. The transfer from Georgia, the quarterback.
Carson Beck?
Jaden Rashada or Jaden? Yeah, I think it's Jaden Rashada. Yeah.
Rashada just transferred to Sacramento State from Georgia, former 5-star quarterback. Any of those things could be what you're talking about. And the answer I'll give you is, well, look, I get annoyed with, I think right now, it also could be the hiring of Mike Bibby as head basketball coach. It could be hiring Shaq, quote, hiring, as he's going to be involved allegedly in basketball operations. I mean, he's going to do nothing, but he'll show up as a fundraiser and help get them some money. So that's not nothing. But I guess what I'll say is what I think happened is the president of Sacramento State, love it or not, decided it's his job to get Sacramento State in the news. And that matters today. And when you have a bigger market like Sacramento State, that's how you get people who could be players in the NIL game off their seats and actually putting money into the program. I can tell you a source, very close situation, told me Sac State's women's basketball NIL budget for this next year is $200K, which that's women's basketball, guys. So no, the money coming in there is real. So that's my best answer is I find the president of Sacramento State slightly annoying. I find the like gigantic amount of hype first to be an irritating approach before there's anything materializes. They have no conference invite yet, but if it was important to you to get some energy into Sacramento State to actually get them to move, I think this is the route you have to go, is make it a circus, get some people to show up. And if enough people show up, it's not a circus anymore.
I mean, Brian, that was a well more thought out answer than I think I was going to hit with. I obviously shouted out Carson Beck as the transfer because he was the first Georgia quarterback that transferred I could come think of, because I was frantically Googling this. I just found this out. Maybe other people knew this, but I did not. So Jay Luke Wood, the president of Sac State, who you've talked about, you just talked about, and is the guy who's making some loud comments on Twitter about Sac State going big time. There's the Sac 12 committee.
President Luke Wood, just so we have a name.
Yes, Jay Luke Wood. The Sac 12 committee, which is a group of business and civic leaders and alumni from Sacramento State that are all involved in trying to push this. Well, the co-chair of the Sac 12 committee is Joshua Wood, the twin brother of President Jay Luke Wood. So they've got obviously one family that is at least very committed to making Sac 12 happen, which more power to them. Sac State, I guess, is a good way to try to power yourself forward. You sign on guys that are names and coaches with, like Brennan Marion looks to have a pretty high trajectory as a coach. So
a much better hire on paper than Mike Bibby.
Yeah. Yes, significantly. But hey, you go with the hype names for basketball to try to get a decent transfer or two. And
I mean, Bibby was a successful high school coach, so I don't want to write that off. He was very successful at that level, but Marion has produced at the collegiate level, and Bibby kind of he vanished for a while.
Yeah, I mean, we saw what happened when Sac State tried to hire a coach with some basketball pedigree in whatever the hell Ben Simmons' godfather's name is. I don't remember his name anymore, but he was only there for 2 years and then dipped. So whatever. That's as much of a give a shit I want to talk about Sac State. I don't really care about them. Martin, any thoughts on Sac State before we just move on? Martin shaking his head no. Fully agree. Good question, Captain, because again, I don't understand how that happened at all, but hey, more power to them.
David Patrick.
Thank you, David Patrick. They've got obviously a large student body. They're in a bigger city than most of the Big Sky teams are. They have an NBA team there. So, hey, good luck. We wish you the best. I hope the door hits you in the nuts on the way.
I want to do Cap Dan's follow-up, 200K. Geez, what happens after they move up and the hype dies? Is this sustainable? Dallas has shake his head no if you are a listener, not a viewer. My answer is, I don't think the answer is no. I think the safest gamble is going to be no, Dallas. But the problems that Sacramento State has is just being a commuter school. There are some sports. It's been obviously hard for Sacramento State to get a big following in. Like we've joked about 1,000 times. For basketball, they played in a 900-person facility, smaller than the high school basketball facility of virtually every one of our listeners, unless you went to school at like Lakeside and Plummer or Kootenai High School. So Sacramento State was not selling that facility out. So it's not an accident to say like, hey, there's obviously some lack of support. And Sac State in most sports has been a cellar dweller for virtually all of their D1 time. Like the minor change there was when Troy Taylor came for football and out of nowhere. Actually Sac State was a little more successful in football than the other sports, but they were not successful in football until Troy Taylor came. So just laying all that out there. So is there a ton of reason to think it's not going to work? Oh, absolutely. But the school is trying to lead with hype and have that materialize into something else. The things you'd say are working are the money has come, and that with where they're going to be, that might matter, not to become good nationally, but to become okay. And I mean, the comparison point is being garbage most years. And the other thing I'll bring up, you would never, ever know this watching the streams on ESPN Plus just because of the way their football arena is set up. But Sac State was the number 3 team in the Big Sky attendance wise, and it's been that way for the last few years. They actually do have some support, and they have the actual city. But I think it's a gigantic, Captain, to acknowledge your point. Oh, it's a gigantic uphill climb, and it's the type of climb that, like, for example, I don't know, just spitballing here, a school like University of Idaho with a smaller population base and a sclerotic admin would never be able to make that kind of attempt. And hey, maybe it's also for Idaho, that's for a good thing that Idaho is where they're at the different conferences. Sac State's diving into a lot of uncertainty. I think they believe in a state like California with as much going on as is going on, they have to just make things look like a train wreck to bring people in. So way too much Sac State talk, but that's my thoughts on why Sac State's doing what they're doing.
Yeah, hopefully this is going to be one of the last times we have to talk about Ball Sac State, because hopefully they do make their way off to the FBS and their dreams of power conferences, and we can just see them leave.
Which would then have them kicked out of the conference for their Olympic sports too.
Yes, exactly. So again, good luck. As Martin drops in the comment section, Brian loves talking about sacks. I know it says Brian loves sack talk, but
the K is silent.
The K is certainly silent. Let's see here. I should have done a much better job organizing this. Producing in public, guys. What would it take for Tubs at the Club to sponsor athletes via NIL? Dollar and sport breakdown coming to us from our very own Jason Mayer. Well, I'll take this one first. I think we would probably have to agree on an amount of money and the athlete or sport that we're going to target. Because it's again, we're not rolling in the bucks here, guys. We got enough money to keep the lights on, and a little bit of booze and weed money for the guys. Like, there's not a lot kicking around here. I think that would be what we'd have to do, guys. Is pick out a sport or an athlete that we're going to sponsor, whether it's somebody that we just really appreciate their contributions, somebody that it would just be kind of funny to do it for, or an Idaho kid.
Ron has an idea.
Cross country, like, exactly. That would actually be, it would be A, sweet, but B, funny to give NIL to a cross country kid, because we've never talked about cross country on the show. Martin, Brian, any other thoughts on that? I think that's what it would take, because we would have to come to an agreement and probably get some impact from our patrons.
Just to plug in a little episode, I think Brian talked to somebody we could reach out to and sponsor some NIL stuff.
Oh, well, I mean, anyone can do NIL stuff through the 1889 Collective, and absolutely anyone. So part of that answer is simple, of like, well, just contact 1889 and go through there. Now, I'm going to radically over-explain this for people. The Tubbs budget, Dallas basically talked about it. We do have a proportion of what we have money-wise that we always set aside to trying to do for our patrons. That is just different. So like 2 years ago, we ordered a shit ton of shirts from Walk On Apparel. Last year, we did a combination of shirts, and also I blended the Tubbs at the Club whiskey and got that out to as many patrons as we could. Nick Weber, I still got your bottle at my house. We live in the same town. We'll figure this out at some point. So we have a certain budget that we do set aside to doing stuff for our listeners. We would probably just say, hey, this year we're going to take that budget and we're going to give it to an athlete to do NIL related stuff. So that's an option. We certainly, we have now in public talked about this more than we've talked about it in private. So we could do that. Just for listeners, I had toyed around with the idea of putting some money into changing up the Tubbs of the Club logo, just to make it a little more vintage, a little bit more us, as in the crew who has been running it since 2022. But that's your long answer. Is we'd probably be saying, hey, patrons, the stuff we try to do for you guys, we're going to do it for an athlete. Hey, maybe in our Discord, guys, tell us if you think that's cool. We have no problem doing stuff to support athletes. And there are some sports where your money hits a little better, or like your bang for your buck return on investment is higher. So, I mean, brain dead for everyone. If you donate to football, look, football needs some money. That's a big deal. But if you can also donate, Ron joked cross country, there are some of the non-revenue sports where, well, if you can get an athlete a couple $100, they're not going to get it otherwise. So there you go. We as a team, the process is we as a team decide how we're going to do it. then we do it with the understanding that, hey, patrons, this cool stuff we do try to do for people. Not doing it this year.
Yeah, pretty much that exactly it. I think I would probably lean on Martin to help us pick out the best athlete or athletes. Just being the guy in Moscow, I'd probably lean on you to kind of get a sense of the community vibe for the person. But it would be a really cool thing to try to do sometime. But also, it would be really funny to have, I don't know, the third string punter record our intro for us and just have this fucking random guy who never actually takes a snap for Idaho be the intro voice of Tubs at the Club. Like I find stuff like that hilarious. Brian is shaking his head. He doesn't like the idea.
No,
but,
I'm saying, look at the private chat. You'll know I'm shaking my head.
Oh God. Yeah, Martin, exactly. Like a Jack Hatton NIL deal would have crushed. That would have been hilarious.
Yeah,
would have been great.
No, Jack Hatton would have been fine. Look, to me, if we did that route, the losers are the patrons who don't get something else that we do try to do. But that doesn't mean the patrons give a shit, because a lot of them, I mean, they donate because they like having something for University of Idaho like we do. I don't think there's a single patron who'd be like, oh, well, I'm devastated. I gave you guys money, then you made a student's life a little bit better. Man, what a mistake on my end. Can't believe it. I did that one.
Exactly, Brian. Mark Trifflepiece in the comment section. I'd want it to be an underdog. Fully agree, Mark. James Aldrich, I think supporting a track and field cross-country athlete would be so goated. Again, these are good ideas, guys. These questions, sometimes there's ideas that come with them. But we are going to move on because we are 20 minutes into the show and we've hit 3 questions. So moving on into, we're going to hit just a bunch of football talk, guys, and then we'll pivot back into some other things. Captain 58, Martin, I'm going to let you answer this one first. This one comes from Captain 58. Name one Vandal to pop in 2025. And I believe that was a football question.
Ooh. Oh gosh, I don't know. Captain, you're I don't know. I'm gonna go with an offensive lineman and say Nate Azzopardi is gonna lead two rushes for over 7,500 yards. I'm gonna go offensive lineman.
2 rushes for 750 yards apiece. Is that what you meant? Or...
Yes.
Okay.
Two rushers, 750 a pop.
There we go. There, I interpreted that as 7,500 and was like, whoa, 2 guys doing that? That'd be insane. But Brian, your thoughts? A Vandal that's going to pop in 2025.
Believe the hype. Joshua Wood.
I mean,
quarterback transfer Joshua Wood from Fresno State on the offensive side. Donovan Parham on the transfer on the defensive side. Although, like, honestly, picking a defensive guy, like, part of that is just throwing a goddamn dart at the 2 deep because there's 2 returning starters.
Yep.
So, no, but those are mine. I think this far away, especially offensively, just buy in on the Joshua Wood hype as hard as you can. 80% of that materializes. This is going to be a really good team.
Yep, exactly. I think we all know the running back room. Obviously, Brian, as you said, Josh Wood is the guy. Yeah, I'm gonna go on the defensive line. Matthias McLean from Priest River, I think, is probably going to have a very big year. I remember hearing some things last year about some of his development, and then this year in the spring, there's been a lot of talk about, wow, that dude's really, really starting to look like he's growing into it. And man, I think Cord Dennison is going to make this defense look really, really, really good. So again, I think you can kind of just throw a dart at the 2 deep, but if I had to guess, the pass rushers are going to be getting home pretty consistently with the exotic looks of the Dennison defense. So we're going to go with that. In the comment section very quickly, Patty Frake saying it's got to be Josh Wood. James Aldridge saying Kinch, would love to see Kinch pop this year. Captain 58 saying, I love the answer from James, but I'm all in on Emerson Cortez Menovar. I have high expectations for Wood and guys like Eli and Nate, who we know can ball. I think the offense is going to look better this year, guys. That leads into the very next question. This coming from Andrew Dennis. What do you feel will be most different about the Matt Linehan offense, and what will stay the same or similar?
Most different is
most difference. You want to go? I'll let you go, Brian.
I think the first thing that's going to be most different is hey, some of this is just hoping. I think the level of cuteness overdosing that took place on the sideline for a couple of seasons, I don't think it's going to be that at all. And I think we're going to see. I mean this in as good a way as possible. I think that we're going to see. I think we're going to see a lot more like intermediate passing. They've been open so far, at least to the extent feasible, that this is likely a run first team, which, Thomas Ford's a former running backs coach as well. So least shocking thing in the world. That was the DNA of the team for the last couple of years. But I think that's where offensively it's going to look different. And now part of that last year was the makeup of having Jack Wagner play as much as he did. But I think, if you go back to the Giovanni McCoy time, though, just the intermediate passing that really worked to expose the middle of the defense just wasn't something that happened a ton at Idaho. And the couple starts of Jack Lane is really when we got to see that. I expect that is going to be more of a feature in this version of University of Idaho football with Matt Linehan.
Mm-hmm. Martin, your thoughts?
Brian said a more detailed answer than I was going to say. I 100% agree with him on that.
So I agree with most of those points. I do also think in the comment section, Jason Mayer saying increased tight end usage will be the most different. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. I think we would have seen that if Eck and Slice would have stayed, but I think this is going to be the year we see a little bit more of that. I think we're also going to see more 2 running back sets just because there's talent there. You got to get them on the game, on the field. I think honestly, guys, and this is the less trick plays. Shout out Grumpy Joe in the comment section. Less trick plays. Obviously, we're all talking about the cutesy shit should hopefully go away. I think the offense is going to get better as the year goes on, and I wouldn't say that has happened in the Eck era very much. The first year is a little bit different, but the last 2 years were different injuries that kind of set the team back. I think they're going to survive the injuries just a little bit better based on the depth that is here. But I think from Matt Linehan being a young guy, a guy with a broadcasting communications degree, so he's very good at communicating to the media. He's very good at communicating with players. I think we're going to see that unit grow throughout the year, because the coaching is going to be a different style that I think is going to work a little bit better.
Yeah, only thing I want to push back on is quite obviously Idaho was a better offensive team in the second half of 2024, but injuries explain that.
Yeah, that was more of what I was getting at, was without the catastrophic injuries in it, the product on the field at fully healthy was not always going up trajectory wise. Name one player from each unit, offense, defense, and special teams, that you're most excited to see this fall. Another question from Andrew Dennis. I am going to preface this, guys, with special teams. I don't know if we know a whole lot of the guys who are going to be special teams contributors. We've known who the returners were going to be the last handful of years. I don't think we know that at this point. But Martin, I'm going to let you jump in first. Offense, defense, special teams, or again, you can kind of take that punt on special teams because it is kind of hard to guess that at this point.
Defense first, like stand out. I'm gonna take the obvious and go Parham just because what I've seen so far. I want to say, and James will correct me if I'm wrong. I want to say it was Owen Adams, the kicker. He was doing a lot of the special team stuff, number 29, I believe.
Yep,
seeing if he
maybe
2
does, Owens makes it hard.
Yeah, this Owen Fosman and Owen Adams, I think. Yeah, and I think he has a huge leg, and he did some more field goal stuff this spring, and so hopefully maybe that I forget it, Cameron Pope, I believe it is.
Yep.
Maybe challenge him a little bit. I know Cameron can be good, but did have some consistencies a little bit with some stuff during the year. Offense, I'm gonna cheat and go with what answers I've given for multiple players of the game and go offensive line again, just because I think like we've said, like the run game is going to be huge this year, and I definitely see them being the most changed with Ensley coming in.
Mm-hmm. Fully agree on that.
Defensively, I'm going to go with the 2 Spokane-related holdovers, Sam Brown, Zach Krotzer. Just seeing both those guys who they had starter level production last couple of years, but should probably have a few extra reps this year. And similar to Tommy McCormick, who just graduated, they're becoming we have fewer and fewer guys who we get to watch them grow for 4 to 5 years. So the Spokane dudes who stayed are the ones on the defensive side I'm looking most forward to seeing. I'm going to cheat on special teams because this is also an offensive guy I really want to see is Lanyetta, aka Junior Alexander, who looked like he was going to be returning kicks and punts in the spring game. And look, he had 22 catches on a Montana State team that didn't really throw the ball that much. So I think there's a world where he could become Idaho's top receiving target. I know Emerson Cortez Menjivar is the guy. If the season started today, you would brain dead write him in as like the number one target.
Mhm.
But Junior Alexander has some other ways he can contribute. So that lets me cheat on the offensive side of the ball. And because I don't want to repeat Joshua Wood, that's the brain dead answer. And it's the brain dead answer for a very good reason. I'm excited to see, like we've just seen Eli Cummings get better and better every year that he's been playing. And look, in the spring, he looked like he was ready to take a step beyond what he did last year. I also, fingers crossed, hope this is a different answer to the offensive question a second ago. I hope we see a little bit more running backs involved in the pass game. And that's one of the ways that Eli Cummings, we've seen him be effective that way anyway. But as a senior leader who now he's, we know his story. It's an interesting story. Started out playing as a freshman, got essentially kicked off the team, then worked his way back in and stayed. So another one of those just interesting stories. They don't happen as much now. So Eli Cummings is the other guy on the offensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I mean, all of those great names. And realistically, had I gone first, I probably would have used all of the names that have been mentioned here. Would have probably been in my three. I am going to go with Junior Alexander as the cop out here. With we assume he's going to be returning kicks, just because, as Martin said, Martin gave the competition for kicker punter. Brian, you got the returner, and then outside of that, like I don't know who the gunners are going to be. Like the special teams unit as a whole can't be the answer, even though that is the correct answer because Thomas Ford should be helping fix our really bad special teams last year. Defensively, I'm excited for Julian Lee, 6'6", probably about 300 pounds when the season starts. Excited to see him continue to fill the middle. He played I think 9 or 10 games last year, but didn't have a ton of stats. Obviously, backing up a bunch of guys that were extreme talents. I think he's going to be one of those interior defensive linemen that we see probably pop pretty well. And then offensively, I'm actually going to go a slightly different direction. I'm going to go with Art Williams because while yes, I think Eli is poised to have a great year and Nate Thomas is poised to have a great year. Both of those guys have been dinged up and nicked up in the past. I would love to see some more Art Williams, sprinkle in a little bit more of the actual three-headed monster, and make sure that the guys, assuming that it's some form of Eli, Nate, Art, or Nate, Eli, Art, assuming that the order is the way it was last year, I think sprinkling in more of Art Williams will keep Eli and Nate much healthier, which is going to make the run game much closer to what like the 2009 Humanitarian Bowl team that seemed to be able to run the ball at will with really any of the backs that went out there. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to see. But again, guys, we got months to find out, unfortunately. Another question from Jason Mayer. How would each of you improve game day for football? Examples include re-entry, earlier parking lot access, more tailgate activities, faster beverage lines, etc. Martin, I'll let you jump in first.
I'd say opening up's a good one. Re-entry, I could go back and forth on. I'd say tend to stay in just to kind of like I know like I'm gonna speak for the band here for a second. Like support, like the band does work hard too, and so if everybody leaves at halftime, they're not gonna really give a flying fuck. They're probably gonna be pissed off at the fans for leaving. But that's kind of the one thing I'd say. Earlier tailgate stuff would be nice. I think, more faster lines would be nice, but they got to work with the constraints they have, and those aisleways can be small.
Pretend
so
there's
it's
no
hard
constraints, Martin. Pretend you are officially the czar of game day. You get to pick one thing.
I'd say no more. I'd say earlier tailgate stuff. That's it for me.
Okay, I have one just because the spirit of this question is what can the school do different, but I actually have a fan thing too. So man, we really could go back and forth on the merit of re-entry. I gotta be open here. This is selfish because I like having my own experiences be more fun. I'm the kind of person who, if I leave at halftime, I absolutely will come back. That's not most people. And Idaho fans are learning how to be intense. Not all of them are.
Mhm.
So I'm going to say, if you like the game day experience to have as much intensity as possible, you need to just accept that no re-entry is the medicine that you have to choke down. So that's me on re-entry. I hate it, but am absolutely okay with it, with no re-entry for Idaho. That's just how it is. So what I would change, I'll do just more lines for beer in particular, or intersection of more lines, and just because there's no re-entry, dude, just drop the price to $1.50 or something like that. Come on, like, so we can scratch each other's back to make this work better. And that's not even for me, because I prefer not. I don't really drink at the games because I have to drive back to Coeur d'Alene, and I'm always the driver. But just for the game day experience itself, no, just like more lines, make the beer cost a little bit less, make everyone happy. Now, the one thing I'll change on the fan side, Idaho is getting better, but I want Idaho's fan base to be the type of fan base like Montana and Montana State, where you expect to stand and yell the entire game. And there is no one who has any business complaining about someone standing up unless you legitimately have a disability and the disability seating was 100% full. So that's what I would want, is if I could change something for the fans, I'd make the fan base more intense. Some people are that way. It's getting better, but we've all been there before, when if you stand up for part of the game, you're the asshole blocking someone's view instead of they're the asshole trying to pressure you into sitting down when you're supposed to be at a game to yell.
I mean, I got no pushback on that, Brian. As you and I constantly hang out on the South Side, where there have been years where I have been yelled at for standing up and cheering, and like, okay, it's a third down. I know that this team's fucking dog shit, but come on, we can still cheer when the defense is on third down. So that's rough. The re-entry, obviously, good points. Martin also making good points. I'm actually going to call it something I thought was going to be unique, but Steve Kurtz's wife actually beat me to it in the comment section. Potty parody. I would actually, and this might be controversial, I would knock out one of the men's bathrooms on the South Side and replace it with a women's bathroom, because this might be exclusive to me, but my biggest frustration with Vandal games is when the game is over and I've got a 2-hour drive to Spokane after you get out of the Kibbe Dome parking lot, and I have to stand up there for 10 minutes waiting for my wife and my mother-in-law to get through the bathroom. I would love to see more women's restrooms, because it's infuriating to me that I can walk into my bathroom and there's almost never a line to get into the men's, or if it is, you're 30 seconds to the urinal, and then I sit there just standing and waiting forever to just watch that women's line slowly move. So that's my biggest issue. It's a small issue, but that is how I would improve the game day experience, because it drives me bonkers. Let's see. Jumping to football, we're gonna just stick on the football stuff here, guys. Another one from Andrew Dennis. Lots of football questions from Andrew today. How would you fix the current transfer system? What changes could be instituted to improve the situation from an alumni fan perspective? I have a very long answer for this, so Martin and Brian, I'll let you guys jump in.
No, dude, you lead with it. If you have a long answer, it means you thought of it more, so that when Martin
Yeah.
and I go, we can sound less dumb.
Fair enough.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. How I would fix the current transfer system is by putting sort of a, Brian's going to hate it already, but putting like a Premier League type of like wavering system through. Hey, you want to buy this player? Great. Well, you have to pay that school X amount of money to be able to negotiate with that player for them to then move on. That some sort of system like that, whether it's a negotiated payment up front to the school, if it's, I don't know, some sort of, the NCAA is going to fall apart and it's all going to be handled by conferences eventually anyways. But if it's some sort of conference rule of, hey, if you want to talk to a Big Sky kid, $500K or whatever the hell the number is, I would love to see that partnered with one transfer window and limitations on how many times you can transfer. I don't want kids to not have the ability to transfer, and I think they should be able to transfer fairly freely. But a guy going to 3 schools in 3 years or 4 schools in 4 years, it gets to a point where it is like, okay, there probably needs to be some sort of penalty on this. But I think the quickest way to fix some of this issue is, hey, Jason Eck, you want to bring Jack Lane and these 7 other Vandals? Great. Well, it's a $25,000 payment from New Mexico to Idaho every single time you do it, and it goes right back into the school's funds for football. That would be the quickest and easiest way to at least police a little bit of what's going on, so that the University of Miami can't just go throw $15 million at 800 players, and then a lot of them, like Mark Hamber with Wisconsin, it doesn't work out, and then they end up at another school with another NIL deal. If you put some regulations around it and force schools to not just throw money wildly, because they're the big schools with millions and millions and millions of dollars in just the football spending funds, rather than Idaho's entire $12 million athletic budget or whatever it may be. So that is how I would fix it. You stick it down to one window after the season is completely over. I know that makes spring football hard, but again, spring football is a fucking joke anyways. Like it's great for the coaches. It doesn't do anything for fans. Like we can figure out a way to make that work, but putting some sort of limitation on kids and how many times they transfer, combined with a payment system for that, I feel like that's about the only way that we're going to get there. And yes, that's very close to professionalizing the thing anyway, which is, I mean, we're right on the steps of professionalizing the damn sport anyways. So, yeah, guys, that's kind of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, so there's only one word I want to substitute and I guess put this in for people to think of is, at times people hear the word regulation and what they think of is a bureaucrat telling you that you need to pay a lot of money to like fix your garage. When we're talking college sports, I think people should rotate the word regulation for protection, because right now we purposely keep Tubbs the Club apolitical, and I'm in a partisan way. I'm about to do that, but you guys are going to catch a subtext in a second. We are right now in NCAA football, all NCAA athletics. We are living through radical deregulation. And what we are seeing is the whole point of regulations / protections is to, buzzword, conserve something that we like, or to conserve something that needs to be protected. And without protections, it just won't exist the same way. We are living through that right now, the radical deregulation of college football, aka and all college sports. No protections, meaning a lot of the tradition that we all bring to college football, part of why you prefer college football, which is objectively a worse product than pro football, because they're not all pros in college. There's different reasons why we come there. But the lack of protections that is what people are complaining about right now. People want more protections. So what you're saying, Dallas, is the NCAA right now is essentially, you have all the shitty part of professionalism, of money trumping loyalty 100%. And look, we know we're all on the same page to some extent. We're not saying we don't want athletes to get no money. No one is saying that whatsoever. But right now everything trickles up to benefit the top programs, and everyone below the top program, you relatively speaking get screwed. Yep. So we have all of the shitty part of pro sports with none of the contractual protections that actually keep people where they're at. Coaches have far more restrictions on how they can leave than players have right now. So what you're saying is, we're at the point where obviously the direction of change is the protections need to be against the players. And that's right now, the players have essentially they have no rules about leaving, but that hurts them too. So the thing I would add to what you're saying, I do believe, hey, players having a little bit of freedom taken away, let's say a freebie transfer, I'm 100% fine with. Mm-hmm. But another change, I think, is that the scholarship needs to become a little bit more of a contract, where it protects both the player and the coach. Of, hey, like, player comes to University of Idaho, it's a, let's say, 2-year minimum commitment. But hey, coach, you hand out a scholarship, that's a 2-year commitment too. Because a lot of players who leave and transfer through the transfer portal that don't find a home at the same level, a lot of those guys are people who were told they had to leave. And had they
Mhm.
been given the chance to stay, they would have stayed.
Yep.
So that's what I would add to what you're saying is, hey, one fewer transfer, but something has to happen with the scholarship or the roster spot itself, where it's understood as some level of a mutual commitment. Otherwise, there's just, in the world we live in today, there just isn't a way to keep the roster continuity.
Yep. And not that roster continuity is ever going to fully stay, because there should be some sort of ability. Look, this might get me flamed in Vandaland, but let's say Josh Wood comes in here and wins the Walter Payton Award. You think that guy's going to stick around for his last couple years in Moscow? Probably not. And I wouldn't blame him for it. If he dropped down to the FCS, immediately won Player of the Year, look, all power to you, dude. Go get that starting job probably in the Power Four and try to get to the NFL. But I would love to see Idaho get some sort of kickback from those schools. And again, that trickle down needs to feel like it's actually working instead of just somebody pissing on you. So, guys, we are 45 minutes into this, and we haven't gotten to Hughes River Expeditions. If you're looking for a great all-inclusive week-long vacation, don't look past your backyard. Hughes River Expeditions has been Vandal-owned and operated since 1976, and they're ready to take you on the vacation of a lifetime. Enjoy a multi-day trip down the Middle Fork of the Salmon, the main Salmon River of No Return, the Salmon River Canyons, or even the Selway. And you can check out special trips like one to see the Perseid meteor shower. Camp on pristine beaches, run amazing whitewater, hike scenic trails, spot wildlife, soak in the beautiful natural hot springs, and like I'm always saying, guys, fish the most remote stretches of river in the entire United States. Just bring your clothes. HRE is going to handle the rest. Grab a paddle, catch dinner, and ride the bull all throughout the Gem State. Call them now at 406-540-4450 or check them out at hughesriver.com. There's a couple more football questions to clean up here. We are 46 minutes into this episode, so we're going to try to fly through this. What is your advice for first-time season ticket buyers? How can we do a better job honoring our local/Idaho kids who are more likely to be at UI for their full eligibility? This question comes to us from JF Kidd.
Well, one, hey, this is from someone who presumably has bought season tickets. So the first one, most of the steps are kind of brain dead. Show up, be as loud as you can at the Dome. And if you have a few bucks, you can kick it towards NIL. And when you give NIL money to 1889, you can be specific to who it goes to. So, I mean, I don't think there is much to overthink here. Until Idaho is selling out every game and everyone is screaming the entire time and NIL is fully funded relative to the Big Sky Conference, that's what you do. Buy your ticket, show up, make your presence known. If you got a few bucks, give it to 1889.
Martin, you're a season ticket holder of multiple sports. Any thoughts?
I don't really have it. I'd say what Brian said is the right thing to do. Just show up, support them, and make noise, and just be loud and proud for them.
The only thing I will add is like, hey, sometimes this is a separate question of, hey, does that mean support VSF or 1889? And the only thing that I'm going to say as far as supporting NIL is I'm not telling people not to support VSF, but like the VSF has multiple people who have full salaries and benefits to go get your donation. That's kind of their job. Let them do their job. So if you are saying, hey, I want to actively do something different, I'd say just like, give a few bucks. When you give money to NIL, the coaches have more discretion over who it directly goes to. By the way, you as the person donating have a lot of discretion too.
Mm-hmm. And Andrew Whipple coming in with the most clutch of the answers in the comment section, because this was the answer I was going to go with. First time season ticket buyers, buy the cheapest tickets you can and then move at halftime. I don't know if I would necessarily buy the cheapest ones. Buy whatever you feel like contributing to the university. But yeah, I moved. I've had season tickets since Idaho dropped back down to the Big Sky, and I have moved 4 different times in 7 years, until I finally found like a spot where, again, I really enjoyed the people around me being able to yell and scream, and you're gonna eventually figure out there's pockets of the Dome where there's folks that just don't really want to do anything other than sit down and pretend to be interested in a game of football for 3 hours. There's also sections where people are doing dumb things like I would do, like shaving a V into my chest hair. Like I've never done it, always wanted to. There are people on in the sections that have that level of fandom as well. So just kind of poke around and figure out where you want to be and what kind of fan you are, because there are certainly places that you will find that are not fun to sit if you're loud, or certainly not fun to sit if you're not loud. So Jason Mayer says, make hotel travel plans as quickly as you possibly can. Yes, 100%, because the hotel situation is pretty miserable. So another football question. Oh,
I want to back up your point though, Dallas, of if you're not committed to like buying, like if this question was, hey, my budget's limited. Oh, Idaho's still at the point where you can buy GA tickets and sit. Look, it's good news if you buy GA tickets and you have to sit GA because the attendance is that good. And hey, that's what I do still, because I've got 2 young kids and how often we can go to games is variable. But I got to tell you, I sat GA at the Montana State game in 2023. It was fine, man.
Moving on, how does the university get more locals to attend football games? We've seen 3 straight years of winning football, and I feel like the majority of fans are still just students and alums. Is the local population base just not enough? Is it the price of entry, the level of football, just not a football-savvy community, or is it something else? Parentheses, as someone that grew up in Moscow, I went to games my whole life, even though we sucked. The main thing that interfered was hunting season, but I still found time to do both. That comes from Connor Lidstrom.
I just want to answer one thing, what it's not. The price is not too high for season tickets for Idaho. It's not remotely close. I
can do it for like working 26 hours a week at Safeway and get season tickets. It's not that expensive. Great that I'm not doing that anymore, but
but you were able to pull it off back in those days.
Yeah. Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, so it cannot possibly be that the tickets are too expensive. I am going to say I don't think it's the level either, because you have to ignore the old numbers back from the Rob Spear days, because those attendance numbers were complete bullshit. The attendance has moved up for Idaho the last handful of years, so winning is the big deal, the big driver of people showing up. Mm-hmm. So I don't think you could say the problem is where we're at, and it's not that tickets are too expensive. My hot take on Moscow is Moscow's actually not a sports town. Never has been. If you look at high school sports, hey, Connor, you grew up in Moscow, so you know this, but if you're a listener, you might not. Relative to the population in Moscow, relative to the resources of the university that are in that town, Moscow is a pretty shitty high school sports town, especially for some of like the bigger name sports like basketball and football. So I think that is just part of the town's DNA. So how do you combat that? Is you do as much outreach as possible, but it can't just be Thomas Ford. Like Thomas Ford can do that, and he's going to do what he can, just like Jason Eck did. But there has to be some buy-in from those salaried administrative employees who they just need to become a lot more aggressive about. Take 1% out of the Sacramento State playbook right now in Moscow. Is people like Terry, people like any older admin who looks like they're not aggressively doing outreach. That's the extra step that needs to take place. I mean, Johnny Ballgame Show talked about it. The AD, Jeremiah Dickey at Boise State, does more outreach in an hour than Golick does in a year. So that's
her entire career here.
Yeah, no, I think that's what you need. Is you do need to sell some of the locals on getting to the games, and the coaches are holding up their end. The players are holding up their end. We talked about this last year. There was no outreach whatsoever for playoff tickets against Montana State. That cannot possibly be okay when you have a top 8 level football team. So that's the thing I would look at is outreach from those who have salaries and benefits from the University of Idaho need to be way more aggressive with getting the University of Idaho out there. There are people who are doing a good job of it. Like, hey, we talk about Jarek and we talk about AC. I think those guys do an awesome job in trying to engage online as much as they possibly can. But this isn't a 1 or 2 person job. This is the entire goddamn ship needs to have a fire lit under their ass in a way that some of them just don't.
Yeah, the guys doing media outreach are doing a great job of doing media outreach. To me, it's the upper level of the administration that has never fully understood what they need to be doing. The administration, I felt, has just never supported Idaho athletics in the way it truly needs to be supported. And this is not like some dream scenario. Like, I understand that realistically, out of all the athletic departments in the country. Like Idaho does not necessarily rank at the highest for a lot of things. Moscow, Idaho, not a great location, not a huge football facility. Like there are 150 programs that have better athletic departments than Idaho and are more funded and whatnot. But man, Bill Chaves at Eastern, that dude was everywhere. That dude kissed every butt and every hand he possibly could just to try to get extra money coming in. And man, there's nothing like that from the Vandals, and there should be, and there should have been for honestly the last 20 plus years. But that's honestly, I think it's a large part of why Idaho didn't make it in the FBS is because there were enough people that were just the old boys club of, hey, been here at the university for 20 plus years as a high ranking member of the athletic department and just coasting in the role, which is fine, but that's not how you grow something is by, again, I can't stand Bob Kustra and Jeremy Dickey and all the different presidents and ADs that have gone through Boise State, but man, they're out there like it's essentially like a politician campaigning for years, and that's what Idaho needs is people out there with grease and palms,
or even like
babies.
Pauline Theros at Idaho State. If we could get that level of intensity from those the higher up, the people whose salaries have six figures attached to them, that's where it is. It should be an all hands on deck project. We know if you go to the games, the people who are out there who are trying to get as many people excited about University of Idaho sports as possible. So like, hey, this is not meant to be dismissive of people doing work. Like we already talked about Thomas Ford and the staff at the coaching level. Coach Art Moreira, I think he does a great job of 100%. Trying to engage with fans as well. And we've already talked about AC, we've talked about Jarek, and hey, Eric, sometimes I think he is pretty aggressive too, trying to get people into the games, which I thank you to all people doing that. But the people cash and the big paychecks, they need to pull their own weight too.
Because we are at 57 minutes, so I'm going to start trying to quick fire some of these. This was asked by Space Lennon and Jade Helmick. Space Lennon saying, when do we play Boise again? Jade saying, curious on the Tubbs crew's opinion on playing Boise State again. I'm going to take this one. I want to play Boise State again. I don't give a shit if Boise State beats us by 50. I want to play Boise State again. They should beat us by 50 because we're in the FCS. However, they're not going to beat this team by 50, assuming that Thomas Ford keeps the Eck train rolling. And that's why I don't think we're going to see Boise again for until the FBS and FCS crumble. I don't think we're going to see it because there's nothing to gain for Boise. Jade suggested something like Wazoo, where it's always there, or doing a 2-for-1. I love those ideas. I don't think Boise's ever going to say yes because what is the benefit for them? They win, okay, great, congrats. They lose, laughing stocks for years. There's no reason for them to do it. As much as I hate them, I can't fault them for not doing it. There's not a whole lot of, at least in football, there's not a whole lot of reason to do it right now.
Yeah, the reason to do it is because it makes the state of Idaho a better place. And it gives you another big event to look forward to as an Idaho resident or someone who lives around here. So
Boise State's never cared about that, so we know that's not coming anytime soon.
So yeah, I mean, like if the only thing that matters is your reputation, because even not Idaho and Boise State not playing, you will never sell me on Boise State generates more money from hosting top 5 Portland State every other year than it would from hosting Idaho football. So no, like it's not even, it's weird that it's not even like, this is the typical thing that I think you might want to like, just bat away. It's like, okay, well, there's not enough money in it. No, fuck bullshit. Not a fucking chance. It's that Boise State is terrified of playing Idaho at this level, even because of the incentives you just said. But in the Olympic sports, not like this is just Boise State having their head up their ass. That's it. Idaho. Now a second ago, we did shit a little bit on high level admin. Now here's to Idaho's higher level admin credit. Golick and Scott Green have been open. No, they want Boise State on the schedule. Boise State is the place that will not play Idaho. Mm-hmm. So it's inexcusable that doesn't take place in the Olympic sports. And if your question today was, hey, Marcel, you're going to look at the 2026 Idaho football schedule. You see out of conference, Boise State's on there. What's your answer? Thank God, about time.
Bingo. Martin, any thoughts on Boise State?
As much as I'm going to take a different approach and say, fuck them. If they don't want to play us, I don't want to play them. That's kind of where I'm at with this. Like, why why try and this is like me. This is like me trying to get 5-star recruits to Kennesaw State in my CFB 25 dynasty. It's never gonna fucking happen. Why waste the time and effort? But like at this point, like I am kind of open to it, but I'm also just like if they don't want to, why waste time and effort and money?
So I think the correct stance is half what you said is I spend no time losing sleep over this, which I understood that you to be just saying that. And hey, full disclosure, I don't spend any time losing sleep over it either. But if we could make the schedule today in all sports, Idaho and Boise State are playing.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, guys, that hits us through pretty much all of the football questions. Because we're over an hour, I'm going to make an executive decision and move some of these questions out of here. And we're not going to get them answered. I do apologize. NK Vandal / Dave, the Notre Dame Vandal question was hilarious. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to cut that for time, especially because it was a joke that really only I was going to find funny. Well, you would have found it funny too, obviously. But final football question, guys, and this kind of transitions us into basketball stuff. Would you rather see, this is another question from Connor Lindstrom, would you rather see Vandal football win the Big Sky and lose the national championship game, or see the Vandal men's basketball team win the Big Sky and make a Sweet 16 run as a 14, 15, or 16 seed? I'm going to answer this.
Run. Give me the Cinderella run.
100% on that, Martin. I think Idaho football has a chance to win the Big Sky in the next 3 years, or is going to be in good competition to win that for honestly the next handful of years. As long as Thomas Ford is here, I think Idaho's going to have a chance. I think Idaho football has a chance to make the national championship game in the next 5 years. I do not think the Vandal men's basketball team will win the Big Sky in the next 5 years or make a Sweet 16 run in my lifetime. So to see another Sweet 16 run, that's got to be the answer for me.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. So when I first read that, I kind of jumped to football because the energy in Vandal athletics is all in on football. Mm-hmm. But I guess I'd look at the return on investment or like the replacement, wins over replacement analogy here. Idaho's already at the level of competing for the Big Sky Conference Championship. They're already at the level of competing for, they're not national championship quality yet, but Idaho's not that far removed from that discussion in football. Mm-hmm. Vandal basketball has been a catastrophe. So if Vandal basketball wins the Big Sky, that's a huge turnaround. And the idea of a Sweet 16 run, two things. One, just look, that would be a fun as hell thing to do. I would do everything I could to beat the games. Second, I think that basketball getting notoriety because it's lower right now would have more of a ripple effect in helping other sports than football taking a baby step from where they're at. Because we can acknowledge football is pretty goddamn high right now. So like that scenario wins the Big Sky but loses in the national championship. Well, I mean, how far is Idaho from that in reality right now for football? Basketball? No, dude, that'd be a tectonic shift.
Yeah, that's huge. The other key point to think about is the eyes. What's going to bring the most attention to Idaho? A Sweet 16 run is going to mean a whole lot more than even an FCS national championship victory. A Sweet 16 run is going to be so much more impactful to Idaho in the long run.
Honestly, Idaho as a Sweet 16 team has some meme power as well, because I think the whole like Kibby Dome thing would not vanish. Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure that like the woodshed could, become a different version of a meme, but finally not being the Idaho men's team being taken to the woodshed.
Yep, pretty much. We could make so many jokes about this, but this question coming from NK Vandal: why has Orlando Lightfoot's number not been retired? Brian, I'm going to let you take the wheel on that because
I have no fucking idea.
Fair enough. That's realistically that's the correct answer is. No fucking idea. I've thought the Idaho Athletics Hall of Fame has been kind of poorly run, I think is the way I'd say it. Look, you can say what you will about Mike Upati and being an NFL first-round pick and playing in the NFL for 15 years, being an All-Pro once or twice. Why the hell did it take that long for that guy to become a Vandal Hall of Famer? Like I should have been a Vandal Hall of Famer. Like
pretty sure,
he graduated.
Because I'm pretty sure it's like I've read the rules. It's like you have to wait 5 years after they graduated. I know it's been longer for Big Mike, and then it's like someone has to nominate them, I believe. because I've looked at like surprise. I looked at doing this for Taylor Pierce and Michaela Friends because I'm probably their biggest fans,
Good
and
choices.
I'm like, this effort is like, I sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to go through the effort of doing this, but if you are like, there's a lot of hoops to jump through. It seems like.
Yeah, for a guy who I think Lightfoot had 3 seasons here, if I remember correctly, sophomore, junior, senior year.
Can I correct the record?
Yes,
Orlando Lightfoot is in the Idaho Athletics Hall of Fame. He was inducted in
You guys talking about the
2008.
number retirement?
Okay.
but so I kind of fucked that one up by going into Mike not being in the Idaho Vandal Hall of Fame for however long. Why Lightfoot's number is not retired, that makes no sense to me. I mean, it's 2-time Big Sky Player of the Year, I think, and played for 3 years at Idaho.
Yeah.
But we're not going to see that again. Like, why is that guy not? It's the same as Jerry Kramer not getting into the NFL Hall of Fame for 50 plus years. It's a travesty, and it should have been corrected a long time ago. This coming from Bill C. and Brian, this one might be the your favorite question of the afternoon. If you could add any player from 1980 onwards to the current day men's basketball team, who would it be and why?
Well, the team needs a perimeter scorer with some size. I think we just talked about that. I'd add Orlando Lightfoot. Like, absolutely no question. Now, if Bill's question was, with the asterisk, like, hey, you don't get to pick the best player in Vandal history that every idiot would have picked first. Understood. I'd probably go Mac Hobson. He was part of Idaho really turning it around from being just garbage to kind of solid in the Don Verlin time. And, he's got size, athleticism. His dad played in Idaho as well.
Mm-hmm.
So no, Mac Hobson, he'd be the guy that I would for sure go to. Although no, back up a bit. The discussion is Mac Hobson or Vic Sanders, and I've now just withdrawn my Mac Hobson nomination, and because of the era, I'm going with Vic Sanders.
How about that? Jason Mayer in the comment section pointing at Gus Johnson. I would say that is the greatest player in Vandal history, only because of the Corner Club legacy. But anyways,
I was gonna go same thing Brian said. I was gonna go Vic. I'd maybe throw in maybe like a Steven Madison just for more other size stuff, but I'm like, Vic's my clear number one.
I thought about all those. I'm going to go with Connor Hill because I thought Connor Hill was one hell of a shooter, and I think Connor Hill was unfortunately about 10 years too early to the college game. I think a guy like Connor Hill shows up now, and Connor Hill's not playing in Idaho. I know he's an Idaho kid, but I don't think Connor Hill plays at Idaho. If Connor Hill was a collegiate prospect right now, I assume he's going elsewhere because the 3-point shot has become so big. So all great answers though, and man, if we could get any of those guys on the team this year, that'd be real nice. Guys, we're on to just the funny ones. So or mostly funny ones. This one is not funny. It comes from Fear the North. If you had to pick between 3 guests to have on Tubbs, who would they be and why? The topic would be to talk about current Vandals, historical Vandals, or outsiders with a Vandal perspective. I have my answers for this. Guest 1, Thomas Ford. I know that's probably not going to happen because for some reason, Terry Golick doesn't like us. Can't imagine why. Second, Mark Schlereth. I think Mark Schlereth is great in all of his media appearances. It'd be great to talk to him, first about stink and the nickname of pissing and shitting himself to keep defensive linemen away from him. But just getting his Vandal history. And then 3, because I love hearing the guy talk, Jerry Kramer. I've gotten to interview him a couple different times. Man, Jerry Kramer is the most interesting dude. Hearing him talk about all those legendary Packers teams in the 60s. Would love to talk about that and talk about his time at Idaho and watching the Idaho change throughout the years. Those are my 3 answers.
My fun answer is, hey, Thomas Ford. My brain dead answer, number 2, is following you with Mark Schlereth, because you gotta. And he's, as far as a person who does not work like coaching any team, he, I think, is the single best Vandal as far as like outreach that we could possibly get.
Yep.
The 3rd, because for the same reason that we're banned, I think this is a show that could be fun Don Verlin.
Oh, that would be incredible.
I would love Don Verlin if we could get a couple drinks in him, see if there's any tea, which could be spilt during that show. So no, that's where I go. Don Verlin, who famously would also never come on the show, because back when I wrote for Idaho, before I thought Idaho should have moved on from Verlin when they were at peak Verlin time, and he'd kind of rehabbed the program a little bit, but it was pretty clear that I thought he just, and I was not wrong here. He was able to take a bad team and make them okay, and that's kind of where his ceiling was, and that's what Idaho needed. But I didn't think he had that. I didn't think he was going to be able to take Idaho beyond that, and just look at the postseason results. That's why. Which is the way I say, like when I wrote for the paper in my grad school, I said Idaho should fire him. So he's not coming on. But Patty Frakes is also right.
Don't say that yet, because I want Martin to have a chance to answer his three, and then we will acknowledge that comment.
So, one I've already had on two of them, and I wish I had them on again so I could do it again with no awkward. That would be the Splash Sisters, Taylor Pierce and Michaela Friends. Love to have them on again. Second one would be like as a current coach, I'd probably go Arthur Murray, just because I've heard him talk a bunch, and he loves the community, and he loves everything Idaho, and I think it'd be a fun conversation. And obviously, like Patrick said, I will go with it and say John Newley, because I'm sure that would be a fun one to have on at some point.
I was not going to bring up John Newley because I thought you might say it, Martin.
I was already going to be one of them.
And then Patty obviously dropped it in the comments, but a John Newley interview would be, I hope it would be the most watched episode of Tubbs ever.
I've seen him amped up before. I think it could be good. It could be a fun episode, I think.
Okay, I withdraw Don Verlin and say Newley with the hope of tea. Again, the hope for the tea to be spilled. Unless Chris Gonzalez.
I've heard he loves a good tequila. I heard he loves some tequila. Newley does.
So, Brian, you got to get into tequila. You got to make this happen.
Well, I'm into mezcal because I like the smoky quality, but I am not actually a big tequila guy.
This question comes from Tom Kendall. It's, I think, directed at Martin. Which band is better, Nickelback or Creed?
Oh, it's Nickelback. I have over 18,000 minutes listened to last year, and I am pushing to break that this year, going for 20,000.
Martin, I got nothing to push back on that.
Top 500 listener on Apple Music.
Okay, I was going to say, it sounds like you're in the top 1%, if not 0.1%. Top 500, that would do it. Brian, your thoughts, Nickelback or Creed?
Literal answer would be Creed, but if I want to be fun, like Nickelback, because of the cultural icons they have become.
That's fair.
The actual answer is Creed, but like if you like gun to my head, I was told, hey, Marcel, you have to become a Nickelback or Creed fan. Nickelback.
I would do the same, but if we're talking karaoke, Creed, because come on, I think everybody and their dog has belted out. Can you take me high? I'm going to stop now because we're going to get sued if I go any further into that or hit the right notes in that, which I distinctly tried to not do. But again, hopefully this episode doesn't get pulled down for that. Just to rip through the last few ones here. Number of years Terry Gollick remains at Idaho, coming to us from Park Hills Minor.
Brian answered it in the question, so I'll let him answer it again quickly.
Jesus. I need you guys to pretend we're producing in public, and I was just spacing out. I have no idea what question you just asked.
That's fair. Number of years Terry Gollick remains at Idaho.
God damn it. When I saw you highlight that, I was terrified that was the answer. Okay, I think the line you set is 2.5. And maybe it's 1.5. Look, here's the thing. She's on the NCAA council, and I think she'll retire after that, but I don't think there's a prayer she's going to retire beforehand. By the way, like, just for I'm not trying to start any rumors. I'm just saying I've seen people in public, and there are some people who look like they need to hang it up. Just leaving it at that. So yeah, I think we're gonna get at least 2 full years. I would love the number to be 1. But honestly, for our sake, hey, pull the curtain back. This is being fun, but also like just to actually say things. I think the bar is so low for her that honestly, our show is better when we just write her off and acknowledge idiocy for like 1 second, then talk about everyone else. So, 1. It's gonna be more than 2. I wish it was 1.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be more than 2 as well. I wish it was I wish we could count it in days, but I don't think we're at that point yet. Brian, I know we are well past time, and you typically have to go. We have 5 questions left above the equals line that I made. Which of those questions do you want to try to hit before we can let you go? Those are my 5 favorites of the ones left. I apologize to those that we're not going to get to, but if we can hit all 5, I'd love to hit all 5. But I'm aware that you probably have a ticking clock.
Oh no, it's okay. We can run through a couple. Real fast one from Peter South, or I'm sure I butchered that. Soeth, my bad. Thank you, Peter Soeth. Oh, phonetic Q. Thank you. If you could add any sport at the University of Idaho, what would you add? Now, to correct Peter, that means 2 because Title IX. So you got to pick 2 sports. I would go with men's and women's hockey.
I'd go with softball and men's hockey.
I'd go softball and baseball.
That would be slick. It's kind of hard to play baseball in February.
I know, but like
March,
WCU can do it. Plus, but I mean, like also, I'd love to go watch Spokane Indians and what Tri-City Dust Devils, but it's a little too far for a drive, and so having like college baseball would be fun.
Think about playing hockey in that in ICC arena if we could fit it a little bit. Oh, it'd be great. Hypothetically, we're going to save this one for last. Actually, if you could design a UI Color Rush or City Connect jersey that has a new logo, what would it look like? Examples being King Spud, the Fighting Taters, or Astro Joe. This coming from Jason Mayer. You guys got any interesting or crazy weirdness with UI?
Yeah,
and
Moscow City Skyline jersey for them. It'd be a lot better than a school up north.
Shots fired.
Well, look, you can't do King Spud because that is Idaho State, and it would not clearly demark Idaho. So, no, I would say just a more aggressive version of Grumpy Joe, because that branding still would be completely different than what Idaho does right now. So, no, it would be something for me. It would be an intersection of, like, I know you're talking about like the City Connect. So obviously there has to be something to connect with the city. So honestly, like Grumpy Joe with a compilation Idaho skyline, which, to throw some PTSD, I actually like some of the logos back in the COVID days when there was Idaho had some kind of skyline logos for some of the, like, net gators. Hey, do that with Grumpy Joe in there somewhere. There, that's a win.
Martin, any other thoughts? Fair enough. I would love to see yellow highlighter jerseys. And I would love to lean into the vandalism, like modern day vandalism, instead of the historical vandals. I'd love to see a really stupid, like cartoony Grumpy Joe, like spray painting a V on something as like the logo, and just black
like
spray painted.
Like
V.
maybe he was throwing it.
Yeah, exactly. Like kind of throw in the V. Exactly, Brian. You're on it. And just like god awful, just full head to toe, like bright pride gold yellow. That give me the NFL Color Rush all day. 2 more questions, Brian. Can you get them in?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Favorite so bad that it's good or funny Vandal sports memory.
Yeah, when Idaho basketball had a couple rough years, even with Don Verlin turning things around a little bit, like the attendance was still pretty bad, because even okay doesn't mean they were good. My family, when I was during grad school, so that's like 2012, 2013, around there, I used to go to games because I still had a Vandal card that they didn't check. So I'd just get in for free. I would use that time as an excuse to call my family, and they wouldn't know I was at a basketball game until like the horn was hit for substitutes to come in. Because I'd be talking to my little brother, and he's like, God damn it, are you at a basketball game? I was like, well, yeah, we've been talking for 20 minutes. How the fuck did you not figure out it's a basketball game by now? So that would be it. Although there's some football stuff thrown there.
That is fair.
That
Martin,
could actually be a really long topic.
It could. I mean, we could have made that an entire episode of itself. But Martin, your thoughts? Favorite so bad it's good or funny Vandal moment, sports moment. That is.
Now, Martin, you may have to unmute yourself for an answer here.
I got nothing. I can't think of anything.
I got one. And it only became funny a little while longer. It wasn't funny in the exact moment, but it became funny like a couple days later. the Paul and Mason Petrino dual personal fouls against Northern Colorado.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
That to me was my absolute favorite, so bad it's good funny moment, because I worked in the media when Paul Petrino was hired. I was there at his press conference. When we got video of him screaming fucking cunts at the offensive linemen because they didn't break the huddle fast enough, I knew right then and there, oh, this guy is not going to work out here. And sure enough, yeah, hey, one bowl game, but great other 7.5 years. So just the hilarity of the Petrino family, like completely just taking that game and just shooting it right in the face. Hilarious.
There's also Idaho quit scheduling LCSC in basketball during the Zach Kloss era because they kept losing.
I remember sitting through those games.
Those were
Jason Mayer, though, scoreboard blocks an Eastern field goal. That was pretty good. And then Patty Frank. Well, okay, Patty, wide right wasn't funny. It was good. That was elation. Right? So celebrating in the failure of your rivals is part and parcel of sports fandom.
Guys, final question. I do want to acknowledge Shills Hole Bay Rob. List the Idaho teams you think will win their conference this year with confidence rating 1 through 10. I love that question. We're not going to answer it here. We're going to save that question and come back to it in the fall when we're getting into previews of the sports year. That was a much better question than most of the questions that we were expecting to get today. So final question. This is a good question too, but not as future planning here. Hypothetically speaking, can you revoke Vandal cards for asking if there was ever a situation where you'd want the Vandals to lose? That previous question came from Jonathan J. This question comes from Linz. Martin, I'm going to go to you first. Can you revoke Vandal cards if there was ever a situation you'd want them to lose?
No, I don't. No, I don't think so.
Brian?
If that's the case, then I lose my degrees as well. You and I hate watched Zach Kloss teams during that COVID like 1-win season. We all hate watched during the Mason Petrino time where, okay, like if it was going to work out, like you wanted it to work out, but when you know it's not going to work out, all you can hope for is the ass kicking that'll wake someone up. So, like maybe this is news to people. I've watched a shit ton of Vandal football and basketball the last, however fuck long we've had the show. Watched a lot of it. And if Idaho was going to win, obviously I wanted the Vandals to win. But I watched a lot of games where it was clear Idaho was going to lose. And I started to absolutely want the team to get their asses kicked when that was the case. And I talked to a ton of Vandals who were apprehensive during Kloss's last season because of concern that Terry would think like winning 14 games was the same as winning the national championship. I talked to a lot of people who brought up like, man, I don't know how the hell to feel about this team because I want Idaho to win, but I don't want this guy back. And if they're even kind of okay, like we're done. So no, you cannot lose a Vandal card for that to me. No, or if that's the case, then the people who host the biggest Idaho show online are going to lose all their Vandal membership.
Yeah, I will be totally honest, guys. Starting so October 16th, 2021, I was driving to Bend, Oregon, for a concert that I was much more interested in, Jimmy Eat World and Taking Back Sunday, rather than watching Idaho Eastern Washington in Cheney. Idaho lost that game 71-21. And I will fully admit that the 5 games after that, I fully rooted for Idaho to lose every single one of them by 1.5 miles, because I was terrified. Like that, we had thought Paul Petrino needed to go for years, obviously, but that was like the moment where like there's no way, like this program will never recover if he's not fired. And thankfully, they went 2-3 the rest of the way and didn't necessarily have any huge blowouts, but the damage was done at that point. But I wholly rooted for Idaho to lose, specifically because I thought it was the only true way out to try to save the program.
When you are a hardcore fan of teams that aren't very good, you get put in those positions of you want things to get better. Like Jason Mayer said it the way he said it in a different way that to how I approach this question of look, a 500 coach has a way of getting new contracts. I hate rooting for a loss for the players, but want the end to come sooner. That is, I mean, look, that's the back and forth of like, even I had this too, where I want players to have as good as experience as they can. If the players have a good experience, I'm going to have a good experience. But when you know it's not going to work without a complete course change, you eventually have to pick someone who's going to have a worse experience. So there you go. And when I've talked about this on the show too, when I talk to dudes in Montana after the Montana win, a different way of saying, hey, I didn't realize people just had fun watching games was it hadn't occurred to me that there are some fan bases where this back and forth of hate watching and how to handle it just never happens.
Nope.
And it's not happening in football, and it makes things so much more fun. The first year that we, like during Jason Next Time, when the tone of our shows got the shift from catastrophe to, oh my God, this is actually fun. The show felt so unbelievably easy.
Yeah. It really, it changed everything for us, obviously. Obviously administrative changes happened and we kind of streamlined some processes, but it timed out with this show just becoming so much more enjoyable for us.
That's the way to put it.
It was the nicest way I can put it. It worked out that, hey, all of a sudden football turned around and obviously our viewership exploded in large part because the football got a whole lot better. So, it sucks to have to root for a loss, but again, like you said, and like Jason said, and when you're hovering at that 500 level, like people get extended too long and you get stuck in purgatory, and that's just not a place you want to be.
Patreon.com/Tubs at the Club. Support the show, guys. We'll be back in August.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much again. Patreon.com/Tubs at the Club. Thank you for for showing us all these questions. Apologies to Shills Whole Bay Vandal for not getting to that, MK Vandal for not getting to his joke question, and Andrew, the answer to the question that you said is probably just a question for me. I do think the Vandals are going to have the best winning percentage of the year. I think the Lions are going to stink a little bit, not stink, but going to drop down a little bit, and I just don't expect the Rams to win a bunch of games because they have a hard division. So best winning percentage is going to be the Vandals just on default, because when you make a run to the Big Sky title and then make a run to the national championship game, you're going to have a pretty good winning percentage. So calling it right now, Vandals in the Big Sky champions, also going to the FCS national championship game. With that said, gentlemen, thank you all for your support. Thank the two of you, Brian and Martin, for being my partners in crime. We will see you guys in the fall, come somewhere around August time. And as always, go Vandals.
Go Vandals.
Go Vandals?
This is producer Brian doing a terrible job of even finding what we're going to play us out with. So we're just going to call it good. See you guys Tuesday.